Hi everybody, this is Mrs. Meeks for Lesson 27's Fluency Practice, which is in place of the application problem. You should not have an application problem for Lesson 27. If you do, I don't see it and I don't know what it is, but here we go. We're going to do this fluency practice instead. So, what you are going to do is you're going to pause this video, you're going to work on all these by yourself, and then you will unpause the video to see if you got the correct answers. So here we go. Go ahead and pause the video. When you are done, unpause the video, and we will check our answers. All right, y'all, so here are the answers. We're going to go over the answers and talk about some patterns that we see. So this is exactly what we did yesterday in lesson 26. So let's go over the answers. Let's start with 1/2 divided by 2. That is 1/4. What I want you to do is I want you to remember that when you are dividing a fraction by a whole number, your answer is always going to be smaller than the number that you started with, which was 1/2. So our answer is smaller. 1/2 divided by 3 is 1/6. 1/2 divided by 4 is 1/8. And 1/2 divided by 7 is 1/14. So I'm going to stop right there. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. And let's talk about any patterns that we see. What patterns do we see with coming up with a quotient? What pattern do we see with coming up with a quotient? Good. What I was looking for you to see is the correlation between these two numbers. So that denominator and the second factor. So look here. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 4 is 8. And 2 times 7 is 14. So what we did here was we took 1/2 divided by 2. And here's a strategy for you now. 1/2 divided by 2. When you are dividing this, dividing fractions, that is the same thing as taking the number you started with, 1/2, changing that division sign to a multiplication sign, multiplying the reciprocal of the second factor. So 2 is the same thing as 2/1, and the reciprocal of it, that just means that the numerator and the denominator switch. The reciprocal would be 1/2. And when we multiply straight across on the top and the bottom. 1 times 1 is 1, and 2 times 2 is 4. So you're going to use this strategy as you solve the rest of them. Let's move down to this one right here. 1/2 divided by 4. I'm going to write it here. 1/2 divided by 4 is the same thing as 1/2 times, we're changing that division sign to a multiplication sign, the reciprocal of the whole number 4. Remember, the whole number 4 is the same thing as 4/1, and the reciprocal of that is 1/4. And when we multiply again, we multiply straight across. 1 times 1 is 1, and 2 times 4 is 8. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to go over the rest of the problems down below using the strategy that I just taught you. So 1/3 divided by 2 is the same thing as 1/3 times 1/2, which gives us 1/6. That is your answer. Remember that we are using these two numbers and multiplying them together. The numerator stays, and you just multiply those two numbers together. So 1/3 divided by 3 is the same thing as saying 1/3 times 1/3, the reciprocal of 3/1, which equals 1/9. 1/3 divided by 9 is the same thing as saying 1/3 times 1/9, which gives us 1/27. 1/5 divided by 5 is the same thing as saying 1/5 times 1/5, which equals 1/25. 5 times 5 is 25. So remember that strategy. We're taking the number we start with, 1/4, change that division sign to a multiplication sign, and then you are writing the reciprocal of that whole number, 1/4, which gives us 1/16. And the last one is 1/8 times 1/6, which gives us 1/48. I hope that this can help you moving forward.